recording for Monday, February the 7th. All right, homework today. You have a test. That's your whole homework. You have a test, and you are supposed to make sure that not today this is a homework, you have a test. Don't look surprised as if I'm surprising you with a test. You need to look at the study guide and make sure you follow the directions for the note card that you're making as your prompt for the discussion question. Does anybody have questions about the discussion question, about your essay question?
No.
Has anyone already done a note card and you want me to look at it?
Oh.
A note card that you're going to use for your test. All right. So, for instance, on Wednesday, I'm going to take a quick glance at everybody's note card and make sure that it follows the directions. And I'm looking at Anna's, and she, in fact, has a title that reminds her what she's going to argue. All of her 3 points have 4 words or fewer. Her counter argument has 4 words, and then she has her conclusion with 4 words. This is perfect. I would say, there you go, Anna. You can use that. If you were to write too many words, if you did it differently, what would I do, Brody, with your note card?
Throw it out. Throw it away. Burn it.
I would put it in the trash can. That is correct. So you have to do it correctly if you would like to use a note card. Any questions at all about the test? No questions? All right, for our prayer today, we're still doing some things that are related to Black History Month. And I'm going to tell you about a person that you have probably never heard of in your life named Martin DePoor. Martin DePoor was one of the few people in this segment who's actually from the era of history that we're talking about. Born in 1579, died in 1639. So he overlapped historically with the stuff that we're talking about in history right now. He was born illegitimately to an African woman who was a slave, and the father was a Spanish nobleman. You guys get the unevenness of that relationship? Yes. A very mixed up power dynamic, who abandoned the family because he was a Spanish nobleman. And so Martin grew up without a father. He wanted to be a Dominican monk. This is South America. You guys know where Peru is, right? Okay. He wanted to be a monk because Catholic Christianity this was the only form of Christianity there was. It had been brought by the Spanish as part of colonialization. He wanted to be a Spanish monk, but he couldn't be because of prejudice and bias against him because of his family heritage. But you know what? That didn't keep him from doing, basically serving God, whom he loved. He just volunteered with the monks and started doing the same things that the monks did. Yes?
Can I grab my Bible?
He was eventually allowed to take vows. Yes, don't disrupt me for that. He was eventually allowed to take vows as a lay Dominican. So what did he do? What's he known for? He established a bunch of hospitals, a bunch of orphanages to take care of people who weren't going to be taken care of. Personally provided food for 160 families. And when I say that was, he didn't have money. He would ask for food for all these people and then give the food out. And he did this regularly. He basically committed himself to asking for stuff and then passing it off to 160 different families. He provided medical help for people in the middle of a pandemic without caring about his own well-being. He was well known for compassion, mercy. And then after he died, the Catholic Church made him a saint. So he was eventually recognized as a Christian who was a really powerful example of God's ministry. He's still held in high regard if you go to Peru or Central America. So, Blythe, can you cut the lights for me? I want you to see the quote from him, and then for our prayer time, we're going to do an exercise here. The quote from Martin Dupour says, everything, even sweeping, scraping vegetables, weeding a garden, and waiting on the sick could be a prayer if it were offered to God. All right, so I want you to think about this for a second. It's very similar to what some other Catholic mystics had said when St. Francis of Assisi said something like this. But when they say that everything you do, even when you stand and you wash dishes, this act of service and your heart being oriented toward God can turn this very mundane task into a prayer. Okay? So what I want you to do is stand up. And I want you to think about something that you do that's commonplace. It could be mowing. It could be playing video games. It could be hitting a baseball, swinging a golf club. It could be dancing. It could be playing with your brother. No, it doesn't even have to be. Just something that's just a regular, everyday thing that you do. All right, so get something in your mind. Okay? You got something in your mind. You have to do it because I'm going to ask you to do something else. Now, I want you to put your body in the position that you would be when you were doing that. So I'm going to do washing dishes. So act like you would act when you were doing that. And then freeze. Ready? And then freeze.
Lying in my bed.
All right, shh. You don't have to tell me. All right, now close your eyes right here. And this is the exercise. I want you to think about this. In the middle of what you're doing, instead of just trying to do it faster or thinking about yourself, I want you to imagine what would it be like to turn your thoughts toward God right now. And it doesn't even have to be talking to God about your video game. I don't mean that. Help me win, God. I just mean, what would it be to turn your thoughts toward God? To let this thing be an act of worship, where you either are turning your service toward Him, or you're turning your mind and your heart and your thoughts toward Him. So do that, and then I want you to think, what would be the prayer here? And say it silently. In quiet, I want you to say that prayer. You have to actually say it because you can't say amen until you finish. So say a prayer in your head, and then you can say amen. No success yet? Imagine what it is to turn your hearts toward God. Say that in your head and then say amen out loud.
Amen.
And then you can sit down. All right, so that's our prayer for today, is to think about everything, even sweeping, scraping vegetables, weeding a garden, waiting on the sick, as a prayer offered to God. Our upcoming field trip, your parents are getting an email today about this, and I would like to encourage you to sign up today. So go home and say to your parents, didn't you get an email from Mrs. Stroko? Can we go? You know, if we can go, let's go ahead and sign up. So, you can sign up because you sign up as a family, and you can always bring more people or add more people or figure out who's coming and who's not coming later. But let's go ahead and get those sign-ups rolling in, please. It's only 11 days away on a Friday at 10:30. Ends at noon, Friday, February 18th. February 18th. Today is the 7th. All right. We're going to go over our sonnet now, but I need the lights back on. I need you guys to pull out your sonnet sheet that you have. Open up your sonnet thing because we're going to add a few more words you might need to define, and we're going to go over it. Okay. Today, the place I marked here, these are the 4 lines that we're going to add to our recitation of Sonnet 116. It's Shakespeare, and Charlotte, we just were talking about Shakespeare in history. That's why we're bringing up our literature and our history. Okay, we're starting with the line that says, oh no. It is an ever fixed mark. All right, you might want to draw a picture next to mark, a picture of a target. Like circle, circle, circle with a dot in the middle. Because that's what it means when we say it's an ever fixed mark. All right, more words you might need to know. That looks on tempest. You know what a tempest is. It's a what? Storm. If you don't know that already in your head, just write storm next to it. It looks on tempest and it's never shaken. We're still talking about love. Love is an ever fixed mark, a target. It looks on tempest. It's never shaken. And then here's another image. It is a star. It is the star to every wandering bark. All right. What is a bark? Do you remember this?
A ship.
A ship. And how do we remember that a ship is a bark?
Disembark.
Nope.
Well,
Because ships are made out of bark.
Oh, is disembark getting off your ship?
Yeah.
It's exactly the same one. That's
That makes sense
awesome.
now. Disembark.
Yes. That's really good, Ava. I like that.
Part.
Way to pull that out. Yeah, so I'm thinking like if you go to Jamestown and you find the carved out boat where they're carving it out of a tree, and you pretty much get down to just the bark, and that's what you're sitting in, you know, so. But that's wonderful. Yes, I'm sure it's all related.
Take the bark off.
Yeah, that's not the point, though. The point is just like
pretend
it's as if that. What's a wandering bark? If a bark's a ship, what's a wandering ship?
A ship that's lost.
A lost ship. Good. So it's a star to every wandering ship, to every lost ship, whose worth is unknown. So that's all right. Do you guys remember reading about this era where, I'm trying to think if you read this book in English, but where the navigators used those things that looked like protractors, and they would measure from the star and then the horizon, and they would use that to figure out where they were. Did y'all ever read that? Read anything about that? It was how navigators would get around in the ocean. They weren't using GPS, obviously. So they would use these things where they would measure the star, they would measure the horizon, they'd find where it was. So the image is talking about that. The measure of a star is unknown. The value of a star is unknown, but the height can be taken. With an instrument, you can take the height of a star for the sake of measuring it. So the value, though, the worth is unknown, although the height be taken. All right, rise and let us go over it. Are you ready? We're starting with oh no. That's the place to start. Stand up, stand up, stand up. You can look at the board if you don't know the words. You can still say it. Okay, ready? Lila. Let's say it all together. Let's start here. Oh no. Say it with me. Oh no. It is an ever fixed mark. And now, I have to pause and say, because of the way Shakespeare's sonnets were with the rhythm, you don't actually say fixed. It's supposed to be drawn into two syllables. So what would we say instead? No. Fixed. Fixed. Yeah, so in the Shakespeare sonnet read correctly should actually say fixed, an ever fixed mark. Mm-hmm.
Will you be grading on something?
You're going to know it so well that you're going to say it right by the time we get there. I'm sure of it.
Wait.
All right, ready? Let's go here, but this time say fixed.
Fix that.
Oh no, it is an ever fixed mark that looks on tempest and is never shaken. Let's do it again. Oh no, it is an ever fixed mark that looks on tempest and is never shaken. Again. Oh no, it is an ever fixed mark that looks on tempest and is never shaken. Let's add, it is the star to every wandering bark whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken. Let's do it as a start. It is the star to every wandering bark whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken. It is the star. It is the star to every wandering bark whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken. Let's start with oh no. Oh no, it is an ever fixed mark that looks on tempest and is never shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark, whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken. Let's go back to oh no. Say the words with us. Oh no, it is an ever fixed mark that looks on tempest and is never shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark, whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken. Again, from the start of oh no. Oh no, it is an ever fixed mark that looks on tempest and is never shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark, whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken. Let's start at the top with love is not love. Love is not love, which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Oh no, it is an ever fixed mark that looks on tempest and is never shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark, whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken. One more time from the top of love. Love is not love, which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Oh no, it is an ever fixed mark that looks on tempest and is never shaken. It is a star to every wandering bark, whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken. We're doing one side against the other. Poetry slam. You guys sit down. You all look at them. No, don't sit down, Audrey. Look at them. Yes.
Less people.
Fewer. Not less. You have less milk, fewer people. Turn toward them. All right, ready? We're going to go with love is not love from the top, everybody. Let's go at them with these words. Love is not love, which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with a remover to remove. Oh no, it is an ever fixed mark that looks on tempest and is never shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark, whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken. You guys sit down, you guys stand up. Can you do better than that? Can you be louder? Can you be more expression? Ready? Orient yourself toward them and let's go. Love is not love, which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with a remover to remove. Oh no, it is an ever fixed mark that looks on tempest and is never shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark, whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken. Pretty good, pretty good. Pretty good. I think that was a good one. All right, we're going to stop here for a moment and take a map quiz. If you are planning on doing the map quiz without a word bank, you need to get out your piece of paper. I'm going to walk around. I'm going to hand out word banks to those who are taking it with. Charlotte, you want to try the quiz? It's pretty easy. No. So if you have a piece of paper out, I'm not giving you a word bank. It's up to you. Are you going to do it with paper? He's not going to talk. Yes. All right. Write your name on that piece of paper. Oh, okay. So, go ahead and do 1 through 10 on the left, 8 through J on the right. Guys, I wanted you to know that the states and capitals are in the same block today. I'm telling you that because it's the writing is a little bit fuzzy. I just used a bigger marker, and so it's not 100% clear. So if it says A, 1 and A will be in the same place, 2 and B are in the same place.
There's only one line, but that's just
No, I put the capitals in the right place. It's just that sometimes the marker is a little hard to discern. I'll walk around and make sure that you guys know what I'm talking about though. So when you get your quiz, you may begin.
We need to do numbers.
1 through 20. They will match. States are the numbers, capitals are the letters. Wait, zip. Number 1, the numbers of the are the states. And you're finished, you should be getting out your note cards, please. All right, let's move on with the note cards. Thank you, everybody. Can you get out your Jamestown, your Pocahontas note cards? And we're going to start with this super easy one, but I'm going to first ask you, raise your hand if you've ever been to Jamestown. You just went to Jamestown over and over again?
Museum of Fine Arts.
Oh,
It got very boring.
that's a good place. I could go to the museum every single week and never get bored. As long just don't stay too long. Go and just go to one little
That's all
section.
they went to.
Yeah, we went Maymont. Yeah.
And that was it.
Mm-hmm.
Maymont.
Those were the three places.
Yep, they're all good places. All right, raise your hand if you've ever visited Colonial Williamsburg.
Oh yeah, I lived there for like.
That's fun too.
Wait.
Yes, this actually would have been a great year to do a Colonial Williamsburg field trip. And raise your hand if you have ever heard of Virginia University that's in Newport News, Virginia, and know what the name is. Christopher Newport University, right. So we're talking all today, all the history stuff is related to things that are really close to our home, right around us, including, you can see from this map. You guys want lights off for this? There might be a few cards you need to correct. Should we do lights off so you can see? The paintings I have in today's slideshow, I'm really showing them to you to show how much they don't portray history, but still, it's probably more interesting if you see them. So you guys recognize our state, Virginia here?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You see Richmond, we're in central Virginia, but we're still kind of close to the coast. If you get on Interstate 64 and you head east, which is a little southeast, you'll come in less than an hour to Williamsburg. You guys have probably been there.
Yeah.
Not only does it have a lovely colonial area, it also has one of the best state colleges in Virginia, which is also a place that people all over the country wish they could come. Does anybody know what it's called? Lila?
William and Mary.
Yes, the College of William and Mary. It's still called a college. That's interesting. Instead of a university, most of the places want to become universities. In William and Mary, they're so traditional and old-fashioned, they really want to stay a college. The difference is just whether you have multiple colleges inside of a university or not. Yes, Lila?
My friend's dad worked there for like a long time, and he just stopped working
Oh, he must be a very smart man. If you kept going a little bit past Williamsburg toward the coast, you would hit Jamestown. And Jamestown's not too far off the road. It's pretty close to Yorktown. Are these all places you guys are familiar with and have visited?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the awesomeness of living in Virginia is that we get to go to all of these super cool places around here. What's that?
I was just gonna say that. It doesn't matter. It's on.
Okay. Jamestown?
Yeah, we've been there.
We just did a field trip there in the fall. We missed
Yeah.
you.
I didn't go.
Yeah. Yes, Lila?
I have the answer.
The next one. Which three ships sailed together?
Godspeed, Discovery, and Susan.
It is true, and if you guys have ever been to Jamestown, you walk down to the river, you get to see replicas of them. Have y'all done that? Walked on the deck, gone around. Here are replicas on the water. They're beautiful boats, aren't they? All right, and here is our captain. Captain who, Blythe? Captain Christopher Newport. So if you know anybody who goes to CNU, Christopher Newport University, and you will know people who go there because it's a good school in Virginia, a good option, public university in Virginia, you will see this, it is enormous statue right at the front gate. It's particular, I think it's oversized, giant statue of Captain Christopher Newport. Yes, Chris?
So, I've been there this year, and I think I saw you went there, and I think I saw that.
Right. So this, where he's standing is where the entrance gate is. It's a big, beautiful brick entranceway that says Christopher Newport University, and he's close to that. So I'm sure you saw him. You can't miss him. He is monstrously oversized, and he's right when you are driving into the university. Ben?
His hand got at some point I was
Oh, really? That's fascinating.
But his hands on.
Yes. Ava?
I have a question. So in a book we read in English, which was Blood on the River, they said that the Virginia company sponsored it, and here they say the one.
Yeah.
Okay, that's perfectly fine. You have
It was the Virginia Company of London.
Yes, it's the same thing.
Oh.
No, but that's a great question, Ava. I appreciate your asking that. What was the goal of the London Company, or we should say the London Company of Virginia? The Virginia Company. What was the goal? All right, so before we say the answer to this, was the Virginia Company, were these people in the London Company, were they do-gooders?
No.
Were they trying to spread the gospel?
No. Yeah.
No. What were they after, Audrey? Yes, they wanted to make money, period. The entire settlement of Jamestown was the goal of the people who sponsored it. It was to make money. I was going to say it's not like where the Puritans settled, but even there, just wanting to escape religious persecution doesn't get you to the New World. You have to partner with people who are doing it for business reasons. But Jamestown was particularly businessy, not oriented towards something else. They were looking for, I don't know, gold, lumber, anything really. Anything they could make money off of. What did they end up making money off of though? What was their product? Tobacco. And you saw that if you've been to Jamestown. They have a place where they dry tobacco leaves in the barn. You get to see it all in process. That ended up being what they called their black gold. But, you know. Yes, Lila.
There's this movie called Pocahontas. Is
Never
that-
heard of it.
I like that.
It's not accurate.
But anyway, is it accurate?
No, it's
That's
not.
like I didn't think it was accurate when I first watched it, and I wasn't sure.
Your discernment
You think
is
she actually
fantastic.
talked to a tree, Lila?
No, not that part. Like the history part with like John Smith.
Right.
She didn't
So
marry John
Lila's
Smith.
bringing up the next card, and I think it's a good question. How in the world did we get this idea of John Smith being this leader and then mix it up with John Smith being somehow Pocahontas's lover?
He's a prince.
They never
Okay.
had it.
What did anybody have any, it's pretty obvious, I think, like any theories of how did they end up doing this? Like how did John Smith get portrayed as something that he clearly was not? Life? In the movie.
That's at the end of the
Yeah.
Because they never got married.
So the interesting thing about this saving of the life is that the reason we have the story that she saved John Smith's life is because he wrote about it. He was a very unreliable narrator. He wrote about stuff like how his life was saved, but then he wrote letters at the same time talking about the colony and never mentioned that. Probably he was making up a lot of that. Pocahontas was only about 10, 11 years old, and John Smith was around 27. There was no romantic relationship at all with John Smith and Pocahontas. But there was with Pocahontas and whom?
John Rolfe.
John Rolfe. So maybe the Disney thing was trying to merge those two characters
Well,
together a
and
little bit.
Pocahontas too.
And even romantic relationship is debatable with John Rolfe
Wait.
because Pocahontas ended up with John Rolfe after she was kidnapped, right? And so, how do we know if this was forced or not forced? We don't really know, except by reading John Rolfe's letters, and he talks about how he loved her deeply. So maybe it was a good version of the story. History is hard to piece together because you're piecing together unreliable narrators. You have to know whether or not you can even trust the people in what they're saying, but you're looking at people's like letters or their records. It's detective work. Being a historian is a bit like being a detective. Yes, Lila.
Okay. So in this sequel, Pocahontas.
Wait, make it fast
He
because
marries
this is.
John Ralph. So that part.
Okay, good. Lily?
I was talking to my dad about it.
Yeah.
And I told him Pocahontas married John Rolfe, and he thought it was John Smith.
Right.
So he probably watched that movie.
When we were little, I feel like the books just only told the story of Pocahontas and John Smith and then stopped there and moved on. Yeah. All right, so the Jamestown was starting to tank. Like, it was a disaster in the making. And there was lots of things that were going wrong. There was a lot of toxic water. Do you guys remember visiting Jamestown? The Jamestown settlement that we visited is not even where Jamestown is. The real location of Jamestown is still an archaeological dig. So they didn't build Jamestown settlement, the tourist one, at the same place. It's closer inland. So you got to think in your head, push it closer to the coast. It's more swampy. It's like brackish water, unstable where they were, and the water in the area where they had settled was toxic. So they were getting poisoned by their water. They couldn't figure out how to get crops to plant. They had the problem of a bunch of gentlemen. You guys know, y'all watch some movies about English gentlemen. What do they do for their work? They drink tea. They smoke pods. They write letters. Like on a really hard day, they might go ride a horse somewhere. They didn't work that hard. The gentlemen didn't work. They weren't supposed to. So when they got on a boat and came over to the New World, they were not expecting to work that hard. And Jamestown was tanking as a community. Yes. Yeah. So what did John Smith do? Like,
He made them work for their food.
he said, you better work or you're not even going to eat. Go ahead, gentlemen. You cannot work, but you're going to starve to death.
That's smart.
It was smart.
Because if eating gives you energy to do stuff, and if let's say 50-50, like half of the people actually work, and they're getting the same amount as the people who don't work,
Yes.
I think that's good.
Yeah, during this time, you've read, did Blood on the Water talk about the starving time?
Blood on the
River.
Blood on the River, did it talk? Okay, so if you've read about Jamestown, you've read about what their first winter that was called the starving time. And I don't think kids' books tend to say this, don't answer this yet. Kids' books tend to say this, but most likely in the Jamestown settlement there was some resorting to cannibalism during the starving time.
Yeah.
And if nothing else, at least digging up corpses of people who had died. They were desperately hungry, even when John Smith did put in those rules about you have to work. Yes, Ava? All right, answer this. The Native Americans in this region were? The Powhatan Indians. Does anyone in this room live in Powhatan? You do.
I feel bad for you.
Yes. It's not that bad.
I tried.
So Powhatan is just a little past. It's in between like Midlothian and the deep west end, Goochland. Powhatan was the chief. We call him Chief Powhatan. That wasn't really his name, but the Powhatan chief was over a bunch of tribes, maybe 30 different tribes. So that's why the Powhatan Indians. For two things. One is that they were pushed west, and also they covered a lot of space. Yes, ma'am.
I'm kind of learning about heritage here because I'm part Native American on Powhatan's side.
You're a Powhatan Native American. That's so cool. Keep an eye on Chesterfield County's library productions because they do sometimes bring in Native Americans for stuff, and you might find a Powhatan presentation, which would be very cool. Yes, Lila.
Didn't the Native Americans have like lots of food and they didn't struggle too much except for like when English wanted to like destroy them?
Well, the Native Americans knew how to live off the land. They'd been doing it for thousands of years.
Yeah.
So when you say they had plenty of food, they didn't have an overabundance of food because that's not actually good either. Then you have to figure out how to do all the storing. They had what they needed, and they knew how to live with the land. All right. This is one of the many unrealistic paintings I'm going to show you. This one pictures Pocahontas saving John Smith. She was not his peer. She was not this old, and she probably didn't save him the way that he reported. The men had wives and a reason to settle down and farm and make a living. Before you answer this question, let me tell you about the first wives. The first wives in Jamestown were mail order brides. You guys ever heard of this?
Yeah.
Mail order. Like, it has happened in the American West too. We have lots of men and no women. What are we going to do? Let's order some women in the mail.
Let's just order some women on Amazon.
So this is the way they got them, though. The London Company offered a deal to a bunch of women. They said, look, we'll give you a free boat ride. We'll give you land of your own so you can be an independent woman. Land of your own. We'll give you clothes. We'll give you the gear that you need. And when you get there, we'll let you have your pick of men. We're not going to set you up with somebody. You can entertain them and decide who you want to marry.
Well, that sounds fun.
And a bunch of women signed up for this. You know, they needed to be married to sort of survive anyway, so why not do it this way? So once these men had wives and this colony was more stable, what American ideas were started? Chris? Free enterprise. And one more. Does anybody have one more? Mm-hmm. Individualism. The American idea of individualism. I am my own person. Free enterprise is about kind of the capitalism. It's the work of making things. Individualism, free enterprise. Brody, are you correcting your cards? Excellent.
Yeah, my cards are right here.
Individualism, free enterprise. You have those down?
I just wrote down free.
All right. The House of Burgesses. You guys have heard of this if you've ever visited colonial Williamsburg, where the House of Burgesses, the representative government that was started in Jamestown, met continually. It moved to Williamsburg. It eventually moved to Richmond, and today it's called our General Assembly. It still meets today. So this particular thing, the right to representation, has been happening in Virginia since Jamestown era. Really remarkable. And we're in session today right now. Currently, our Virginia Senate does not meet all year round. It is currently meeting, our Virginia General Assembly is, and that is our continually, since Jamestown, since the 1600s, right to representation. But there is also seeds of injustice, Wesley. What kind of injustice was planted even back in the Jamestown days? All right, Micah?
Mistreatment of Native Americans, and they had slaves.
Yes. Mistreatment of Native Americans, taking away the hunting grounds, pushing them further west, which might just be like here to Richmond. This is further west. The need for laborers made them look to slavery as a solution. I'll tell you, the very first slaves came to Jamestown. I'll say slave, singular, because when they needed help working the fields, once they pushed the natives out, they needed help working the fields. These gentlemen couldn't do it themselves. They bought some indentured servants off of a Dutch ship. And indentured servants means that after 7 years of working, you get your freedom. But One of them tried to run away, and he became the very first slave in America. Because after he tried to run away from his indentured servitude, he was forcibly enslaved for life. And so the very first slave in America happened even in Jamestown. Capital city was Williamsburg, like you guys know. Virginia, capital of Virginia, Williamsburg. Why did the ship's captain kidnap Pocahontas? Ben?
He was hoping to ransom her to Mr. Howard.
Yeah. Her real name was Matoaka. She took the name Pocahontas after her mother, who had died at childbirth. And her father, Powhatan, was actually a Pamunkey native. I'll try to say his name, Wahunsinneka.
Oh my heavens.
Pocahontas married a widower, which is a very nice way of saying, like, maybe she did it on purpose, but this was after she was kidnapped. Did you guys know she had been married before?
Yeah.
She was married to a native, had a son, probably had a son, and he died or something, maybe in the attack where she was kidnapped. Everybody say it together. Who was the guy she married? John Rolfe. Here is one of the, all the pictures of Pocahontas from this era. This is 1910. It all looks. Yeah, I'll show you a real. This is a not realistic picture of her wedding. Again, idealized.
That's very weird.
And here is probably the closest we have to an actual portrait of her.
Oh,
But this is when she got dressed up in all English, stuff like the top hat. She was treated like a princess. You guys know her name is the same as mine, except she spelled it differently. Again, third time she changed her name.
It's spelled the exact same as mine.
Yes, it's your mom. So this right here, she was treated as a princess in England because she was the daughter of the chief. And all of that, but then she died. Where?
England.
On the
In
last
England.
ship that sailed.
Of illness, maybe? Unless she was poisoned.
Did she have kids?
I'm going to tell you guys, I tried to read sources about all of this. Jamestown, it's very straightforward. Pocahontas, every website disagrees with itself. Some of them are full of conspiracies. I just had to give up in the end and just say, clearly everybody disagrees about Pocahontas and what happened to her. All right, you guys are dismissed.